Welcome to Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet with Ryan Potterack from Potterack Capital Advisory. You have unique values, objectives, fears, life experiences, and biases. Any financial professional who ignores or minimizes the importance of your story may not be able to help you achieve your ideal outcomes or hit your goals. It's time to experience the PCA difference. In this podcast, we help business executives, soon-to-be retirees, and solutions-based individuals overcome the anxiety leading up to their upcoming years. We do this by initiating in-depth discussions about the financial aspects of retirement, like tax planning and asset allocation, alongside, and often overlooked, personal and lifestyle aspects. Join us for this journey where we explore retirement from a contrarian point of view, as Ryan draws from years of experience and qualified guest professionals to help you explore the true purpose of your money in retirement and the impact you want to make in your golden years. Ryan Potterack and Alec Quaid offer investment advice through Private Advisor Group, which is a federally registered investment advisor. The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Private Advisor Group and Potterack Capital Advisory are separate entities. This information is not intended to be a substitute for individualized legal or tax advice. Please consult your legal or tax advisor regarding your specific situation.
You're starting your working career and things are going well for you, both personally and professionally. So well, in fact, that you start to think about the future and managing your growing assets. Certified financial planner Alec Quaid knows a thing or two about younger investors getting started. So, Alec, when should someone begin working with a wealth manager?
Well, it's a great question, and good morning, Patrice. And yeah, I do know something about this, I guess, because I am a younger professional at 29 myself. And so kind of being in that younger end of things, I think the answer to your question is maybe they don't need to hire a wealth manager in their 20s or 30s. It depends on the situation. I don't think you're going to hear that from a lot of managers, financial advisors, but from our perspective, whenever I'm meeting with someone in a similar life stage as myself, I'm assessing the situation to see, is there enough value that I can add based on the circumstances? And because if someone's going to pay me or pay our firm for advice, our value has to be in multiples of our fee, is how I view it. And in some cases, the situation is just too dang simple. And I will frankly just tell the prospect, you're not ready for us. You're not ready to hire a financial advisor. Here's what you should focus on. Maybe it's just, I'm just plowing a bunch of money into savings for a down payment, or I'm just kind of putting money into the 401k for the match or whatever, simple stuff like that, where I'm happy to provide some direction, but it's like, there's just not enough here for you to pay us for advice. That's not always the case, but that's how I'll approach it, because again, my value needs to be in multiples of the fee that we're charging.
Mm-hmm. So basically there needs to be moving parts, more than just one or two moving parts.
Yeah, absolutely. And some things are just, I guess, simple pieces of advice that I can provide with an hour or two conversation and send them on their way for the next year with, hey, just focus on these 2 or 3 things for the next year. And then let's reconnect in 12 months and see how things are going and see where you're at. So it's not a go do these things and I'll never see you again. It's just, let's work on these incremental things. And eventually it's going to make sense for you to hire me. But maybe not right now. Of course, there's always situations where, someone's got, a young family or a handful of moving parts and they just don't know what they don't know. And they really want advice and want a professional and don't have any either capacity, knowledge, or desire to do any of the financial stuff on their own. And that's fine too. They may choose to hire me or hire our firm because of that. And that's just where it comes down to the individual situation.
How do you explain to them what you do that they can't do themselves?
Well, I think a couple thoughts come to mind for that. I have perspective that they don't. So if I'm talking to another 29, 30-year-old, whatever. They know their financial situation. That's it. And this goes for all life stages, but especially for young people. They just know what's going on in their life situation. I have the opportunity to see many financial situations, not only as a young professional and what that looks like early on in life, planning for your finances, but how that manifests as a 45, 55, 65-year-old going into retirement. That then informs a lot of pieces of advice that I give to young people, because I know and I've seen how things play out throughout one's life financial journey. So just from that kind of point alone, being able to offer my perspective on what I've seen work well, what I haven't seen work well, I think is of tremendous value to someone who's younger and getting started. And beyond that, getting into maybe some more of the tangible stuff, a lot of times we have access to investment options, solutions, strategies, institutional investment options that retail investors don't. And then that's where, as someone's wealth accumulates and grows, and we start getting into more sophistication, where we can really say, hey, we have these things available to us that you either don't have available to you, or just don't know what they are and how they work. We can bring that to the table. So yeah, I think those are the first couple things that come to mind.
Yeah, that's very valid. The second point. I love the first point though. Basically, you know the end game. You've seen the end game, and you can help guide them toward something that they have never seen before.
Yeah, and it's like, for example, one example that comes off the top of my head is a lot of young people always ask, well, what should I put money in, a Roth or a traditional or a brokerage account? And that conversation is, well, I'll let you know in 40 years, once you get to retirement, what was the best decision. But what I can tell you, just as a really easy example, is that all of our clients in retirement who have money in really all three of those, what I'll call tax buckets, they really value the flexibility and the optionality to pull from different buckets at different times, depending on what they need money for in that year. And so that's just one easy example of, a lot of young people will neglect the individual brokerage account option as a tax bucket to save into. And one area where I'll be like, well, no, you will appreciate this, and here's why. I've seen this play out. So things like that I can bring perspective from dealing with someone who's 65 and 70 one day to dealing with someone who's 30 the next day.
Right. Suppose a young person comes to you and says, well, I have a lot of debt. I have a lot of credit card debt. What do you tell them there? Should that be their priority before they even start looking to contribute to a 401k?
Potentially. I mean, the mathematical, the technical answer, and then there's the emotional. How do I feel about it? I mean, things can be totally reasonable decisions, but are they rational? Is kind of the thing we have to work through with all clients. And so, just using this as an example, if I were to just look at the straight math, let's say someone has a 401k with an employer match, common match is 3%. Well, let's just use John. If John can put 3% into his 401k and his employer matches 3%, well, what's his rate of return on that 3%? Before it's even invested in the market, it's a 100% rate of return. Every dollar up to 3% was matched by his employer into that account. He just made a 100% rate of return on that money automatically before it even touches the stock market. Now, if I have credit card debt or private student loans or public student loan, federal student loans, whatever it is, the game becomes comparing your interest rate to your expected rate of return in the investment. Again, purely mathematical. If my credit card debt is a 25% interest rate, which it commonly is in the 20s, well, that's a really tough number to beat in the markets at any given year. We may assume that our stock market based investments earn whatever, 7, 8, 9, 10%. But in any given year, for us to say, well, it's definitely going to earn more than 25%, I wouldn't say that. I definitely wouldn't say that. So if we could take $1 and put it in an investment that we assume is going to earn whatever, 8-9%, or we could pay down debt that's at 25%, the math would tell us to pay down the debt that's at 25% because that's going to net us more money in the long term. We're basically guaranteeing a 25% return on that investment. It's a little backwards to think about it that way because you're not making money, but you're paying down money that was increasing at a rate of 25% in this case, the credit card debt. So full circle with this example, what we might say, again, situation is the boss and it's totally dependent on the client situation. But if I can get an employer match in my 401k, well, that's 100% rate of return. 100% is better than 25% paying off credit card debt. We might say, okay, we'll at least get our employer, we'll at least contribute to our 401k to get the employer match for now, and that's it. And then all remaining funds will be directed towards paying down high interest debt because mathematically, that's the next highest rate, interest rate that we have to direct funds towards. So that's a lot of times what can make sense, but sometimes it's just people are so overwhelmed just emotionally and mentally with their debt situation that it's like, we just need to power pay down this debt and get us back to zero on the liabilities section of the balance sheet before we do anything else. And that's where we start talking about the common snowball versus avalanche methods. Snowball being start with the smallest balances first, avalanche being start with the highest interest debts first. So yeah, that's some of the things I think about to that question. Long answer.
No, that's a good answer. Lots of good stuff in there. And it also prompts my question. Have you seen a lot of younger people with student debt?
Lots. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's increasingly more common. I mean, we've got a problem in this country with just the whole federal student loan system. I'm not sure how that's going to come home to roost eventually, but interjecting maybe a little bit of my own opinions here. That's we're handing out debt like it's candy, but a lot of people have student debt, and there's a lot of things that can be done with different payment plans. A lot more flexibility on the federal student loan side, for sure, with different repayment plans. Once you flip to private, if you were to refinance to private, which can make sense depending on the interest rate that you might be able to get at that time, but there's really no flexibility on the private student loan side. This is where it comes down to a conversation, but people want to just pay off all their student loans before they do anything else savings wise, save for a house, save for investments, save for retirement. And that could make sense, but most commonly I see it doesn't make sense because one of the most important things, or probably the most important thing when it comes to your investments and saving for the long term, like retirement specifically, is time. Time is the key variable in growing your wealth when it comes to compound interest through investments. So when you have student loans that you're paying off and someone tells me, well, I want to wait 5, 8, 10 years until my loans are paid off to then start saving, that can be a mistake because you're missing out on that amount of time that compound interest could be working for you.
Right. What is the or what are some of the concerns that you hear from 20 and 30 somethings along with student debt?
Well, it's typically, and we've kind of been hitting on it roundabout way. It comes down to the question, what should I do with my next dollar? That's really what I see most young professionals when they're coming to me, they're asking all these questions. When you boil their questions down, it's what should I do with my next dollar? I don't know if I should put it in my 401k. I don't know if I should pay down my credit card debt. I don't know if I should save for a down payment on my house. Should I do all of them? They don't know how to prioritize what to do with their money. And that's where a conversation with me can be really helpful because, for example, I just was speaking with a young couple earlier this week, and they were, concerned that, well, we're not saving as much for retirement now because we really just want to get into a house. And, just for them to hear from me, that's okay. That's part of the life stage that you're in. Getting into a house is a significant upfront capital expenditure. I mean, you got to have money available for a down payment. And that could vary, of course, in whatever amount you're putting down, but you got to have funds available for a down payment typically. So if we're putting that up on the pedestal for the next couple of years and putting something like retirement on the back burner, as long as it's not totally neglected, I mean, that's okay. And so having that conversation and just making them feel like, look, it's okay to do this, because I told them, for example, people who really end up shooting themselves in the foot for retirement long term, people who, wait until 10, 15, 20 years, they're in their 40s and they haven't saved for retirement at all. That's not going to be most young professionals who work with me, because they are intentionally wanting to save money for the future. But if you have to take a little bit of a pause on that in the short term for other priorities like a house, that's totally reasonable. So that's probably the main root of most of those conversations, Patrice.
Well, that's a very responsible place to start, though.
Yeah, it's interesting how just a conversation can make people feel so much more comfortable with what they're doing. And, there's so much out there on the internet. The internet has all the answers, but the internet doesn't answer what should John and Sally specifically do with that information. And that's really where a wealth manager like myself can help them understand really what applies to them and what doesn't. And I have personal experience from most all of the things that they're going through with my own life, and seeing a lot of other folks go through it. So I can offer that kind of, maybe I'll call it wisdom. I don't know, whatever you might call it, something like that.
Knowledge. We'll go with knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yeah. All right. Well, how can a listener reach you, Alec, or reach Ryan Potterack at Potterack Capital Advisory if they'd like to have a conversation?
Yeah, so you can reach out to us anytime. Go to our website, www.potterack.net. That has all of our info. Our direct line is 704-366-5776. You can call us, you can send us an email, check us out on social media. We've got LinkedIn, obviously this podcast, Twitter, Facebook. We're on all the social media. So very easy to get a hold of us if you'd like to.
Great stuff. Great stuff, Alec. Thank you. Listeners, no matter what your age or level of success, please follow this podcast, Life is Not Lived on a Spreadsheet, for more information and insights into investing and wealth management. Again, no matter what your age. Share with others too, please. I'm Patrice Sikora, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you for listening to Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. To ask questions about topics covered during the show, or get a copy of Making It Count, Life Isn't Lived on a Spreadsheet by Ryan Potterack, visit www.potterack.net or give us a call at 704-366-5776. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Potterack Capital Advisory. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Potterack Capital Advisory does not offer legal or tax advice. Please consult the appropriate professional regarding your individual circumstances. Nothing contained herein is to be considered a solicitation, research material, an investment recommendation, or advice of any kind. The information contained herein may contain information that is subject to change without notice. Any investments or strategies referenced herein do not take into account the investment objectives, financial situation, or particular needs of any specific person.
Product sustainability must be independently determined for each individual investor. Potterack Capital Advisory explicitly disclaims any responsibility for product suitability or suitability determinations related to individual investors.